There is a certain type of disturbing story that doesn't progress. Essentially, it's a story told in a loop. The same thing happens over and over and over again. In the story that we're told, we get the specifics that happens within a loop, the people, the places, the actions, but really it's the same thing happening over and over and over. Upsetting stories that feature evil in the plot often use this trope. Many short stories are told in this way. It's like a reporting of what happens. It's not the time that things go differently, which is the kind of story people who watch movies more than read books are used to experiencing. I'm going to give you an example, and I'm going to use a short story that came out in the 70s and a movie that came out in the 80s, so I don't think that I am spoiling anything. I don't think it's too soon because it's been 50 and 40 years. So Children of the Corn it's a movie that's based on a Stephen King short story. And the Stephen King short story is about the small town of Gatlin, where all of the children have killed all of the adults. And at the birthday of 19, you get sacrificed. And it is all in worship of this deity that they call He Who Walks Behind the Rose. And it's connected to the corn and not really the point. In the short story, the two adults that end up in Gatlin figure out what's going on, get captured by the kids, and get sacrificed. End of story. In the movie version, the original, there's been a lot of remakes and sequels and whatnot, but I'm talking about the absolute original. Came out in the 80s, where the two grown-ups come into town, discover what's going on, and change things. They end up saving a couple of the little kids, they're saving some of the cult members, they end up taking out, the ones that are just too zealous for, the world, but it changes things. This is the kind of story where things don't progress. You're just going to hear what happens this time, right? And I find these kinds of stories to be some of the most disturbing stories out there because, like I said, nothing changes, nothing improves. Every evil thing you hear about is just going to happen again, and then again, and then again. Hi, my name is Elizabeth. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm really glad you're here because I read the novel Seed by Ania Ahlborn. Seed is the story of a grown man who has left the demons of his childhood in his childhood home many, many years ago, and he never looked back. But now, his youngest is 6, and she is showing signs of that very same demon. Trigger warnings. First, when I say demon, I am not using that as a metaphor. I am using that as the literal sense of demon. There will be gore, violence, extreme violence perpetrated by children and violence on children. Creepy supernatural events abound, and there is the death of a couple of family pets. So keeping all of that in mind, if this is not the story for you, I totally understand. Go watch an episode of New Girl or take a bath. Otherwise, if you're interested, join me for the ride. Seed by Ania Ahlborn is the story of a family living in Louisiana. Father Jack, Mother Amy, and 2 daughters. Abby, who is 10, and Charlie, short for Charlotte, is 6. They also have a family dog, Nubs, who is a black and white border collie. Okay, so during the days, Jack works at a store where he patches up flat-bottom boats. And then on weekends, he plays in a band with his good friend Reagan. Amy was raised by parents who do not think that Jack is good enough for their daughter, and they tried to prove that by cutting her off. She was absolutely determined to live a life with the man that she loved, and they're making it work. Jack is from Georgia, but like I said, he ran away from his family home and landed in Louisiana and is still there. When the story begins, the family is driving down the road in their one family car. Jack is thinking about how they've always talked about getting a new car, but other things come up and they just keep driving this old beat-up Saturn. It's late at night, and both his wife and girls are sleeping. Suddenly, Jack sees two eyes reflected in his headlights. Eyes in the middle of the road. Being an animal lover, there is nothing he could do to stop himself from swerving, a move that causes the car to flip over and land on its roof. Now, all four passengers are hanging upside down by their safety belts. Once extracted from the car, they discover that they hardly have even a scratch on them, right? I mean, the little one was in a car seat and they all had their belts on, so they're fine. The car, on the other hand, is completely totaled. Now, that doesn't mean that Amy is calm about the whole thing. She demands to know what happened from Jack and why he would swerve the car and not slam on the brakes. At first, she's like, you must have fallen asleep. And he's like, no, I didn't. I saw something. And she's like, well, why didn't you stop instead of swerving? But, at that point, even if he's got an explanation, there's nothing they can do to change it. So Jack tries to tell her that there's something in the road, and he looks back, but there's nothing there. And in that moment, Amy realizes that after extracting Charlie from her car seat, that Charlie has wandered off to the side of the road. Jack runs after her, scooping her up and asking her what in the world she's doing. She points into the darkness of the night and says something ran that way. She says, Daddy, I saw it too. He tells her it was probably just an animal, but Charlie protests, saying, it walked on two legs like us. And Jack tries to convince himself otherwise, but can't. A couple of days later, Amy is with her kids at her mom's house, and her mother is complaining about Jack again. She explains to her daughter that she cannot chauffeur them all over the place while they're without a car. She explains, what days she's busy, and she's like, and I can't be your chauffeur, and, she's so unhelpful. I think she's trying to prove that her daughter married the wrong guy. It is so painfully obvious that she does not like her son-in-law. That evening when Jack gets home from work, Abby is doing her homework on the couch in front of the TV, which is something she doesn't usually get away with, but it's because Amy is distracted with Charlie, who has a fever that has spiked to 103. Jack wonders why Amy hasn't put Charlie into the tub to try to cool her down, but Amy reports that Charlie screams bloody murder anytime she tries to even move her, let alone get her into the tub. So Jack takes over. They run a cool bath, and Jack holds his daughter down under the cool water. She screams and bucks, but Jack proves stronger. Amy is horrified at the sight of it, and Abby is also really, really frightened. Amy assures her oldest that Charlie just needs to cool down, but Jack knows something is off. His daughter fought him with the strength that a 6-year-old simply cannot possess. Later, Amy complains that their youngest is sick because the people of Louisiana take their sick kids out into public places. Jack says that the South is the South, but Amy protests and says that she adores the South. She loves the South. She's grown up in the South. She wouldn't live anywhere else but the South. What she can't abide is the dirty South. Jack tries not to think about how he is exactly what Amy and her parents would think of as dirty South. What would they think if they knew that Jack ran away from home when he was a teen? I mean, he didn't just run away. He ran for his life. Later that night, Charlie comes into her parents' room and wakes up her father, telling him that there's something in her room. Jack assures the child that there's nothing there. And when she protests, he says, not to worry, come on. You share a room with your older sister, Abby. She's way bigger, so whatever it is, it's going to eat her first, right? Charlie tries not to laugh out loud so she doesn't wake up her sister. An hour later, the closet door in the girls' room swings open, and neither girl is awake to see it. The next morning, Abby is dragging herself to the kitchen table for breakfast. Her mother is worried that she too is getting sick, but Abby says she's just tired because something was scratching on the wall in their bedroom all night long. Reagan is Jack's best friend and bandmate. When Jack arrived in Louisiana after hitching a ride out of Georgia to get away from his family, he saw Reagan trying to sneak a smoke around the side of a building while his mom was shopping inside. Jack went up to him, and they had become instant friends. Reagan's mom had had a childhood not much different from Jack's, so she took him in without much fanfare. There wasn't really a lot of money, but Reagan's mom was really smart, and things always seemed to come together so that they weren't hungry, and they always had electricity and whatnot. You know, they were barely scraping by, but they scraped by. He and Reagan were having lunch outside when Reagan announced that they have a gig on Saturday. Reagan and Jack are described as the backbone of a band called Lamb. They usually play the same watering hole in New Orleans pretty often, but Jack isn't sure about this weekend. With Charlie sick and no family car, maybe it's not the best time to have a gig, but Reagan, Jack, and even Amy knows that they will be at that gig on Saturday. They never miss a show. Missing a show is how you stop getting booked. When Abby got home from school, her little sister was on her bed under the covers in a lump. Charlie still slept with her butt in the air sometimes. I don't know if you've ever seen a little kid do this, but they like tuck their arms under their chest and then they pull up their knees to their chest and they're laying on, so they're laying on their arms and their legs, and so their butt is stuck up in the air. And it's something that like is left over from like infancy. It's a way that lots of babies sleep. So when Abby sees it, she's like, oh, okay, well, that must be my sister sleeping under there the way that she sleeps, right? So she's going through her book bag and she sees the lump that is her sister move a bit. She calls her sister's name, but there's no reply. Abby just sort of assumes that she must be sleeping. So she goes back to her book bag and then the little body under the covers begins to convulse as if it can't breathe. Now, about a year ago, Charlie had been diagnosed with asthma after an attack while they were at the park. So Abby assumes that's what's going on. She asks her sister if she's okay. The lump is now panting and heaving, and Abby was about to call for help when Charlie appears in the doorway. And now it's Abby's turn not to be able to breathe. Charlie climbs up onto her bed and says, "No, I'm not okay. Didn't Mommy tell you I'm dying?" Abby does not know what to do with herself. At dinner that night, Charlie announces that there's something living in the closet in their room. She thinks that he's the one who's been making the scratching noises. Later that night, the parents are called to the girl's room by terrified screaming. When they get to their kid's room, Abby is sitting up in bed, screaming. Charlie is standing with her chin to her chest and her arms at her side still. The room is covered in vomit. It's on the beds, the walls, all of Abby's school folders. Jack tries not to think about the empty, dark eyes on his youngest daughter's face. So the next day, they take Charlie to a doctor. By the time they leave, Amy is pissed. How dare that doctor say that there's nothing wrong with their youngest? You don't vomit that much and not be sick. You don't have 103 fever unless there's something going on. But after a moment of silence, Amy quietly says, "There's something wrong with her. I can feel it." And that's when Jack realizes he didn't hear those words come out of his wife's mouth. He heard those words come out of his mother's mouth years ago. Decades ago, those exact same words spoken about him. When Jack was about 10 years old, there was an old stray cat that liked to run around their property. Jack's father hated the cat and tried many different ways to get rid of it. He told his son that if he could get a hold of it, he should get rid of it. But Jack ended up bonding with the feline. In fact, he started putting out a saucer of milk for it sometimes, and eventually the cat began to sit with Jack and let him pet it. They spent afternoons in the sun together until one day Jack, completely unable to control himself, grabbed a hold of the cat like a pair of jaws. The cat bounded away and then stopped to glare at Jack like, "Why had you done that? I thought we'd bonded." At first he was concerned, but that quickly melted away, and all that remained within inside Jack was anger. And he could hear his father in his head saying, "Get rid of that thing however he could." So Jack set a trap. And the next day, when his mother saw the cat hanging from the tree on their property, she screamed louder than she knew she was capable. That night, he had listened to his parents talk about him. They lived in a trailer, so private conversations weren't really possible. His mother sounded wounded She wailed that there was something wrong with their boy. She told her husband that she had seen their child clawing at the walls, like he wanted to climb up it, and that his eyes were wrong. His father burst into the bedroom and found his son sitting calmly on his bed with a look of confusion on his face. His mother cried that he was lost, and his father looked so confused it verged on rage. Now, Jack did have a bit of understanding for his mother in this moment because he could remember her coming into his room and he had saw her standing upside down. But he wasn't sure if she had been walking on the ceiling or he had been standing on his head. Can you imagine having that memory? Oh my God. And not knowing? This book was scary, I gotta say. Saturday night, after the gig was over, Jack went looking for gifts for his girls. The kids always wanted gifts when he would go away, right? I mean, that's a very little kid thing. What are you going to bring me back, Daddy, right? But finding a kid-friendly gift on Bourbon Street is not such an easy thing. So he finds himself off the main road. He's looking through a tiny shop that's got, like candles and tarot decks and shrunken heads and African masks and that kind of thing in them. And there's a sign saying that you could get your tarot cards read. And Jack thinks back to a night when he and Reagan had gotten their cards read many years ago. Jack could never really get past that reading. It was a 3-card spread. I'm going to quote the book now. All of them were bad. The Tower, a symbol of abandoning his past. The Moon, signifying deception and trickery. And last, the devil himself. 2 demons flanking him, a man and woman, chained at his perch. The man who had been doing the reading gave Jack a strange look and then got the hell out of there. Getting back to the task at hand, he asks the girl in the shop if there's anything his daughters might like, and she suggests mood rings. He gets 3. As he's going into his wallet to pay, his shoulder is crashed into by a big guy who's sort of heading on his way into the shop. Something about the man made every single one of Jack's hairs stand on end. The trucker gave him a grin, tipped his hat, and said, "Good to see you, Chief." On the front steps of the shop, Jack thought about that big man and went back in to find him, but he wasn't visible in the shop. He asked the girl if the big guy had gone into the back, but she just looked at him like an alien had sprouted out of his hairline, which meant there was no trucker, which meant Jack was probably going crazy. Meanwhile, back at home, Amy popped some popcorn and put on a not kid-friendly movie, but she couldn't focus, not even on George Clooney killing vampires. There was scratching. She tried to locate it, but every time she would get close to it, it seemed to move to a different place in the house. Finally, she returned to the living room to keep watching the movie, but the popcorn was now all over the floor, and Nubs was happily eating away. She shooed the dog away and started to clean up the mess, but the dog wouldn't go anywhere. It just looked at her sort of pathetically. So she took Nubs to the back door because, when your dog is staring at you, usually it means it needs to go out, right? But Nubs won't go out the back door, which is super strange because Nubs is one of those dogs that's always trying to get outside. He usually bounds off so quickly and happily it used to worry them. But right now, the dog will not leave the house. Finally, she returns to her movie, but it's only 30 seconds after pressing play that she hears a crash coming from the kitchen. She's convinced there must be someone in her house. I mean, there's no way a noise like that could be done on its own. She yells that she has a gun. She yells that she's called the police. But when she finally turns on the light, what she sees shocks her. Family's kitchen table is upside down. All 4 legs are pointed into the air facing the ceiling. The table that had taken 2 large men to wrestle into their house was now upside down. And the popcorn bowl that she had placed on that table was now in the center of the table, but now the underside of the table. And the popcorn is all over the floor again. When Jack gets home from the gig, Amy is practically opening the front door before he gets there, saying, "It won't stay in. I keep picking it up, but it won't stay in." Then she leads him to the kitchen to see the table. He asks if she put the chairs like that, and it's only then that she realizes that the chairs were completely undisturbed. Jack touched his wife's shoulder and she burst into tears. Jack couldn't sleep. Too many memories were bumping up next to what had happened in their home that night. He thought about his own mother, about when things started to be weird when he was a boy. She had reacted just as Amy is reacting now. Then he wondered how a parent goes from caring to not trying to find out what happened to their son the day that he ran away. He didn't understand why they never came looking. But he knew it had something to do with fear. He got up and went into his daughter's rooms to check in on them. At first, he thinks he sees something crouched in the corner on Charlie's side of the room. He takes a very long time to open the door the whole way so that the light from the hallway makes it to the corner, but there's nothing there. But Jack knows what he saw. It's the same thing that used to sit in the corner of his own room when he was a boy. I'm going to quote the book again, because there's no way that I could give this description in my own words and do it justice. Black skin, scaly like a lizard's, small black horns poking out of its head. Its face so eerily human, but yet so unearthly that it had certainly come from the very pits of hell itself. When it smiled, its crooked mouth curled all the way up to its eyes, displaying a maw of long, jagged, cannibal teeth. And those eyes, they were nothing but vacant hollows. It's the exact figure that's emblazoned on Jack's back. He had told Amy it was a stupid thing he did when he was too young to know any better about making a bad choice. He had this thing tattooed on his back. His mother had loved him, but by the end, she could hardly look at him. Was that the fate that awaited Amy, too? The next morning, he told Charlie that yes, he had turned the kitchen table over because there was a loose leg that needed fixing. Then Charlie told him that Mommy said that he had to get up soon, otherwise they were going to be late for church. The family had been to church a total of 3 times since they'd been married. The first year they went to Christmas and Easter, and then Amy had been baptized. Charlie had not. Jack spent that hour that he sat in the pews imagining his daughter going crazy in all manners of ways. But when the hour was over and nothing had happened, except that Amy thought everything was going to be okay now. Jack tried not to think about how his mother had reacted the same way, how she had turned to God. This is more than just behavior. This is something we need. We need God to fight against this thing. It hadn't worked for his mom. He wondered if there was any way it could work for Amy. After church, the Winter family went to the girls' favorite place, a 50s-themed ice cream shop. Amy got a sundae and Charlie got a shake. Both arrived with cherries on top. Charlie asked Abby for her cherry, but Abby said no. Charlie demanded the cherry. When Abby hesitated, the 6-year-old asked, "Are you going to tell on me? Is that how you think you're going to get your way?" And then Abby responds, "Well, why shouldn't I?" And Charlie's answer is that if she doesn't give her the cherry, then Charlie would tell on Abby. And without another word, Charlie sweeps her arm across the table and pushes her own shake onto the floor. At first, Amy asked Charlie what she'd done, but Charlie's face was a mask of shock, and she starts to cry, and she says, but it's Abby that did it. When she asked for Charlie's cherry, Charlie said no, and Abby pushed the shake onto the ground. Amy turned on Abby, telling her that she was going to be grounded after she cleaned up the mess that she had made. Abby then burst into tears. Amy told her to calm down and then pick up the sundae and offered the cherry to Charlie, who happily ate it. Amy walked out of the restaurant with Charlie in her arms, leaving Abby and Jack to deal with the mess. Jack took an extra moment inside, giving a large tip to the girls who would actually be cleaning up the mess, and then found Amy reprimanding Abby again. Jack asked his wife to go easy on her, and Amy reacts very strongly. Go easy on her? Then Jack says, she didn't do it. He'd been watching the whole time. He saw exactly what happened. Later that night, Charlie and Jack sat together in the living room. He asked her what happened at the soda shop. Charlie shook her head, indicating she didn't want to talk about it. Then she told her father that she didn't even want the cherry. She didn't know why she blamed Abby. Then in a whisper so quiet, Jack was sure he wasn't supposed to hear, she said, "It wasn't even me." Jack didn't reply, but his thoughts were clear. It was you. And it was me. It was us. It was we. That night, Charlie found herself standing next to her sleeping sister's bed. Her head was pointed down and her hair hung into Abby's face, causing her to swipe at it in her sleep. Then the closet door began to creep open and Charlie jumped back into her bed and pulled the covers up over her. She tried to sleep, but there was something, a tickle, a prickle inside her that wouldn't allow her to reach unconsciousness, and she knew that the only thing that would stop it was if she got back up, stood over her sister, and watched until her sister stopped breathing. So the next morning, when Charlie was supposed to go back to school, she protested because of exhaustion. Amy would not stand for it. She got the girl up and got her into the bathroom. And then told her that she was moving so slowly that she wasn't going to have time for breakfast. Then Charlie yelled at her mom, "But I'm tired." Amy is now 6 inches from her youngest face, asking, "Did you just yell at me?" Abby was terrified. She wasn't the one Mom was talking to in that way, but Charlie just continued to yell, this time calling her mother stupid. Amy then ushered Abby from the room and turned on Charlie using her full name. She told her that she will never, ever yell at her or lie to her ever again. Then she tried reminding Charlie of Annie, little orphan Annie, and said that she was going to have to scrub their house from top to bottom. Charlie protested that Daddy would never let that happen. Finally, Charlie yells at her mother that she and Daddy have lots of secrets and Mommy will never know any of them. That night when Jack got home from work, the house was strangely quiet. Turns out the girls were with Amy's mother. Then she said they needed to talk. They needed to talk about what was wrong with Charlie. She wanted to take the girl to a therapist. Jack is less than supportive. He doesn't know why he can't support the idea or why it's making him so mad. When Amy tells him that Charlie complained that she couldn't sleep because of things that were touching her, Jack remembers when he was a boy and he would be so close to sleep and then something would slither past his arm or leg and he would be wide awake again. And it would happen all night long, leaving him exhausted the next day. But Amy is still pushing. Jack just wants this conversation to be over and done with, but Amy won't drop it. They need to get help for their child. Reaching her breaking point, Amy begins to wonder out loud if an exorcist might be better. Jack can say so little. He just keeps thinking if he could tell her about everything, if he could tell her about his childhood, tell her about what he discovered on their property all those years ago, but he can't. He doesn't know why, but he cannot tell her. Amy isn't supposed to know, and her knowing is against the rules. Rules Jack will not break. When Jack was a boy, before anything untoward happened with the family cat, Jack had gone exploring on their property. He had discovered an abandoned graveyard. Headstones still stood and part of an old iron gate still stood, and that was where he had first seen it. First seen the dark eyes reflecting, first caught a glimpse of that black demon with horns and scaly skin, the one that now took up residence on his back in tattoo form. That had been the start of all of this. Or had it? Does Mom seem to be too aware when it all started? Was she too scared at first? There wasn't time for her to discover what was actually going on. She just seemed to kind of know. Did all of this start with her? Had Jack unknowingly passed a family curse onto his youngest daughter? Because Jack now remembered the day that his mother had dug into her closet with such ferocity until she had located an old coffee tin can. She took the can and her son and drove 45 minutes to a doctor's office. She handed over the coffee tin saying, "This is all the money I have. in the world. And someone needs to take a look at my son. It's an emergency. She did finally get her son looked at, but it never actually went anywhere. When the couple went to pick up their children from their grandparents' house, Charlie leapt into her father's arms, then complained Daddy was squishing her guts. After getting herself into the car, Amy's mother told Jack that her husband had wanted his car back and that Jack should get off the porch and keep it that way. When Amy asked what he did, his response was, "I rang the doorbell." Later, after they had gone, Amy's mother wondered if she should tell her daughter what Charlie had told her that Jack had said about her. Because earlier, Charlie said, "You know, my daddy called you a fat, evil bitch." Could you imagine those words coming out of a 6-year-old's mouth? Back at the house, trying to get Charlie fed is a complete and total failure. No matter what Amy offers her, she will stick her nose up in the air and announce that she hates what it is, and eventually Amy gives up, saying, "Whatever, kid." After dinner is over and each member of the family has retreated to their own area, Jack in the wingback chair, strumming his guitar, Abby found him, crawled into his lap. She asked about her sister. Jack said Charlie is a little confused about growing up. And he assured Abby that no, she had never been confused growing up. And then Abby wanted to know if Jack had seen the darkness in Charlie's eyes. Jack didn't answer, but he assured her that when she asked if she was crazy, that no, she was not. Then she asked if she could move into the attic. Monday night, Jack called Reagan and asked him to meet him at a bar for a drink. Jack told him that he thinks there's something very wrong with Charlie. And then they discussed God and the devil and good versus evil. But Jack never really told his best friend what was going on. And when he got home, he found his wife reading in bed. She manipulates the conversation so that her mother comes up. And he asks her to remind her mother to act like she doesn't hate her son-in-law. Amy finds that comment interesting and says it's also interesting that he would call her mother a fat, evil bitch to their 6-year-old, but not to his wife. He denies it, of course, but Amy says kids don't lie like that. But Jack comes back with, kids lie all the time. Jack sighed and told his wife that their oldest daughter wanted to move into the attic. Amy flatly refused. The attic is gross and drafty, and she wants the girls to stay close. The next morning, when Amy entered her daughter's room, she was shocked by what she saw. Charlie, sitting up in bed, wide awake. Charlie, who would stay up late so that she could sleep in. Charlie, who would sleep 12 hours at a time if they would let her. Charlie, who never, not once, ever got up early. And here she is, sitting up in bed. And when Amy asked if she's okay, Charlie answered, "It's time for school. It's time for breakfast." Amy is completely unnerved. Her daughter runs over to her, stands within her personal bubble, and says again, "It's time for school." Charlie bounces out of the room towards the bathroom, and Amy heads for her own bedroom, searching for the asthma inhaler she hasn't used in years. Amy does get both girls fed and out of the car for the ride to school, but Charlie is still talking about how it's time to get up, it's time for school, it's time for breakfast, all while wearing the most unsettling smile. Finally, they head out the door, and Charlie turns to her mother and says, "Don't be scared, Mommy. At least you still have Abigail." I had to keep reminding myself that these things were coming out of the mouth of a 6-year-old. 6-year-olds are still really little. 6-year-olds are like first grade. That's when you turn 6 usually. Or you turn 7 in first grade. So you start first grade when you're 6, typically. So this is a little child, you know. Abby's 10. 10-year-olds you can have a conversation with. They are starting to be little grown-ups or like little human beings. But 6 is still really little. Just so unnerving. Later, Amy would find Jack and tell him that their 6-year-old needed a psychiatrist. And when Amy looks at Charlie, she doesn't see her Charlie anymore. She sees darkness. Maybe it's schizophrenia. When she collapses into her husband's arms saying, "This cannot be happening. This isn't our family," Jack heard a voice say to him, "This was never your family. This has always been mine." Jack's mom had sent him to a shrink, but it didn't do any good. After talking to the man for about an hour, he was given a prescription of anti-anxiety medication he never once took. He tried. He knew he should. But when it came down to it, he could not get his body to cooperate and actually take the damn pill. So Jack spent the next day calling number after number trying to find a doctor who would put his 6-year-old on drugs. He'd rather have a zombie than a demon. When the girls got home from school, Jack fed them. Abby ate quickly and returned to her room, and Charlie sat at the table reading the back of the cereal box that was left on the table from the morning. Jack looked at her and began a conversation with the thing inside his daughter. "So you're still here," he says to her, to it. "I guess I should have known better. I always thought it was strange I managed to outrun you. Now I know I was wrong to think that I had." "So what is it that you want?" Jack asked. "What is it that you want? Or was I just the kid who sat in the wrong cemetery at the wrong time? I want so badly to say, 'Take me instead,' but if that was an option, you would have done it by now. Please, do what you want with me, but leave my family out of this." The answer that hisses out of the mouth of his 6-year-old is, "I'll do what I want with you, and I'll take your family, too." Then as instantly as it appeared, the darkness dissipated from Charlie, and she's talking about the prize from the cereal box. The next day, Charlie asks for nuggets and then shouts some Harry Potter incantation that seems to cause all the dishes in the drying rack next to the sink to jump off of the counter and crash onto the floor. Charlie looks beyond guilty. She starts yelling, sorry, that it wasn't her, it wasn't me, and then she runs off. Today it's Jack's turn to give Charlie a bath, and everything is going as per usual when Charlie asked a question that surprised Jack. She asked him why he ran away when he was little. Jack is beyond shock when his daughter asks again, why did you run away? Didn't you love your mommy and daddy? Jack asks his daughter who told her such a thing, but she refused to answer. It wasn't until he threatened to stop playing her favorite song at bedtime that she finally yelled, Mr. Scratch, okay? Mr. Scratch told me because he knows everything and now he'll never let me sleep again. Jack is terrified. He does not need to ask his daughter who Mr. Scratch is. He knew full well who she's talking about. He had seen him as a child and then again in his own child's room. Charlie then tells her father Mr. Scratch says he knows Jack and that they used to be friends and that he's going to come back to play the game that they never finished. This book was so scary. The next day, the Winters get a call from Charlie's school. She disrupted class, and they need to come pick her up. She was shaking her desk while she was sitting in it, and when asked to stop, she did not. Then there was the outburst, which the principal will not repeat, and it's been decided that Charlie is going to stay out of school until next Monday. 2 days later, Abby and Charlie and Nubs are playing hide and seek outside the house. It was Abby's turn to hide, and she was very good at finding hard to find hiding places. After Charlie checked all the usual spots, she seemed to get distracted and focused on Nubs. Jack sat on the front porch and couldn't seem to move his body from the spot where he sat. He just watched as Charlie started to run after the little pup, how she leapt forward abruptly and it scared the dog. But Jack was not able to get up and run after the dog in time before the dog itself ran into the street just ahead of a UPS truck. The back half of the dog is completely crushed. and the Nubs is dead. Abby screams and runs into the street. Charlie watches with indifference, and Jack thinks to himself, you watched that happen. You saw the whole thing. It's your fault, too. And that's when Jack realizes he's terrified of a 6-year-old little girl. That if she ran into the street right now, he would turn away and let her do it. Charlie didn't run. Instead, she looked at her father's face and said vile things. Poor Daddy, so sad about a dead fucking dog. Jack did not know what to do with himself. He finds himself at Reagan's house announcing Nubs is dead, that she ran into the fucking street when Reagan wants clarification. Jack yells, Charlie, Charlie fucking ran him under a delivery van. And finally, Reagan is able to get Jack's attention and asks them, what the hell are you doing here? You should be at your home. Which is when it finally occurs to Jack what he needs to do. He needs to go back to Georgia and face his demons. He convinces Amy that he has to drive to Georgia because of a doctor that can help Charlie. He tells her that there's a preliminary meeting with just a parent and the doctor, and this doctor is known, and this is the best thing, and Amy is so relieved that he's finally accepting that something really bad is going on with their child, so she relents and lets him go. But he's not going to find a doctor. He's not going to meet with some famous doctor that's going to save their daughter. He's going home to find his parents. He's going home to confront his mother, to find out what she knows, what she's been through. He needs answers, answers that he probably should have gotten a long time ago. He's been terrified of this since he hitched out of town, but now that his child's life is at stake, and for her, he is willing to face that which he fears just slightly less than the demon haunting his 6-year-old. As he drove towards the past, he tried to recall memories that had always been fractured. He remembered being locked in his room. He remembered losing time. At first, it was moments, but eventually it became hours or more. He'd be laying on his bed in his room, and then suddenly, the wet grass would be beneath his feet as he sprinted into the night. That's how it felt the night that he ran out of town. He remembered his mother's reaction to all of it, and how from the perspective of his adulthood, he could see clearly that his mother had been plagued with the same demon in her own childhood. It's why she had been so terrified from the start. She had always known what it was. At 3 a.m., Amy heard something slamming against the screen door in front of the house. The author does such a good job of building up suspense and tension as Amy convinces herself that she needs to go check, because it takes her like forever to convince herself that she really does need to go like downstairs, and she really does need to open the door, and she really does need to like go down there and figure things out. Like even just like getting out of her bedroom is really difficult, and she gets herself downstairs into the front door, and there's a creature. There's a creature outside, and it is hunched over, and it is in the middle of the street, right where Nubs had died. And she sucked in a breath that the thing seemed to hear, and it turned towards her, and she could see it now. Its needle teeth dripping with blood, its black eyes full of evil. It was devouring what was left of Nubs. Amy slammed the door shut, and then it was gone. It wasn't in the street anymore. She tried to talk herself into believing she was just seeing things. But then she realizes she never opened the front door. It was open when she got there, and that she had not imagined. Jack pulls over to a random gas station, but he doesn't need gas. He thinks, I need a candy bar, just a little bit of, sugar to get me, to through the rest of my trip. And he goes into the station to look, but there aren't any candy bars. But there's a big guy behind the counter, and he asks what he's looking for, and then comments that 4 a.m, being at a gas station in the middle of nowhere with a sweet tooth is not exactly safe. Then he tells Jack that he is clearly running from something. He's running from something he's been running from his whole life. The trucker-looking guy says that he knows it doesn't matter if Jack continues on his way or turns around and goes home right now. The same ending is going to find him. What he's running from cannot be gotten away from. There is no running from the devil. The trucker's mouth slowly morphed. Its teeth were pointed like needles. He dropped its needle mouth open, threw his head back, and laughed. Jack ran for the car. Back at home, Amy is sure she's never going to get to sleep, and with the scratching and thudding and thunking going on all over the house, it does become absolutely impossible. Then she hears Charlie up and walking through the house, and she follows the sound of her until she finds both girls sleeping in their beds. She heard her daughter running around, and now she's sleeping in her bed. Okay, so she goes back to her room, and she's cleaning up the clothes that were ejected from her closet and discovers a shoebox. Now, Amy's got a thing about shoeboxes. They have a little house. Shoeboxes are big. You buy new shoes, you take the shoes out, you put them in your closet, you throw the shoebox away. It takes up too much space. And here is a shoebox in her husband's closet. She's like, so she's already aggravated. But then she opens it and she finds it's actually full of photographs, all kinds of photographs. Ones of the girls, of the family, of Jack and Reagan from a long time ago, of her. They all have one thing in common. Somewhere, usually hidden in the background, was that thing that Jack had tattooed on his back. It's in all those pictures. If it's hiding behind this doorway, or you can see a reflection over there, and Amy thinks, oh my God, every time he went to pick up photographs, he sat in his car and he pulled out all the ones that had a picture of this thing in it and put them in this shoebox. Okay, back to Jack, who has made it back to the property where the old trailer, and to the old trailer where he actually grew up. And it's still there, but it's clearly abandoned. And wherever his parents are living now, it is definitely not here. And it looks just like it did the night that he left, oddly. There's more rot, there's more weather damage, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. And he's able to walk inside and see his old bedroom looking like he literally just got out of bed and headed to like the John, except for the layers of dust. And that's when he hears a voice asking if he needs help. It's the man who now owns the land. Jack told him that he used to live there, and the man told him that he had purchased the place about a year after Jack had left town. He didn't know anything about the people who had lived in the trailer. They had been gone by the time he bought the land. He'd always planned to get rid of the trailer. He just hadn't gotten around to it yet. And Jack asks if it'll be okay if he looks around the property just a little bit, and the man agrees. Before parting ways, Jack asks who might know what happened to the people who had lived there, and the man told him there was an unofficial local town historian, and he told Jack where he could find her. Jack waited for the man to drive off before heading back behind the trailer and deep into the forest. He's looking for the old graveyard, where he first saw Mr. Scratch. But it's gone. There's nothing. He can't find an old graveyard. He can't find old headstones. He can't find a broken down gate. There's nothing. In the morning, Amy makes the girls breakfast and tries not to be afraid of her 6-year-old. And it's hard, because she's terrified of her 6-year-old. So she suggests to the girls that maybe they go to the APL and look at dogs. But Abby protests, saying she never wants another dog again. Too soon, Amy thinks. But Charlie starts in on her sister. That is just stupid. I mean, we're going to get another dog. So I guess whatever dog we get, you'll hate it. That kind of thing. Finally, before walking out of the kitchen, Charlie says to the family, he was a dumb dog and got what he deserved. Both mother and older daughter sat at the kitchen table and cried. When Jack leaves the property where he grew up, he makes his way to the bowling alley where the local historian is supposed to be working. At first, she's kind of flirty with him, like, oh, are you the newest member of this town? Because you're cute, But when he tells her what he wants to know about, that he wants to know about the trailer out on Route 17, her demeanor totally changes. And she says she doesn't want to talk about that. But finally, she does relent, and she says that the parents, Stephen and Glinda, is what she says. Now, her name was Gilda, but Jack thinks close enough, were oddballs, but they had a really sweet boy. At least that's what everyone thought. I mean, Stephen worked at the factory, and after a couple of days of not showing up for work, a wellness check was sent to the trailer. When the authorities got there, they found a mess. A literal mess. The couple had been destroyed, in pieces, torn apart, blood everywhere. And the boy was missing. At first they thought that maybe he'd been taken, but eventually it became clear that it must have been the boy who had done this to his parents. But he had disappeared that night. He was gone 2 days before anyone even knew that there might be something wrong with the parents. And people speculated that the boy was more than just a boy, that he actually might be a demon or something. I mean, why else would the family nail 2x4s across the boy's bedroom door? She finishes her story by telling Jack that she has a question for him. And before she even says a word, he knows exactly what she's going to ask. So, Jack Winter, did you kill your parents? I don't know. Oh, God. But I think I probably did, is what he thinks to himself. And he thinks back to the night he ran away. He remembers running. He remembers hitching the ride. He remembers looking down at his legs and seeing that he didn't have any shoes. He remembered thinking to himself that when his parents realized he was gone, they were going to be sorry. That was when they would start to care, and they would curse their selfish choices. The truck that had pulled up next to him offered him a ride. It was driven by a large man in a hat who said, "You need a lift, Chief?" Jack had gotten into the cab and fallen asleep. The driver of the truck was glad he was where he was supposed to be that night, because Jack seemed to have no idea that he was covered from head to toe in blood. Back at his house, Abby and Charlie are outside. Abby is happily reading, and Charlie's bored. She wants her sister's attention, but she's got her nose in a book, so Charlie gasps, "Oh, look, a possum!" But Abby doesn't even look up. So Charlie follows with, "Oh, were those babies on her back?" This gets Abby's attention. Eventually, Charlie gets Abby to head off into the woods looking for the mama possum that does not exist. Charlie is wearing a sinister smile as she heads after her older sister. Jack was driving home when he got a call from Reagan. "Where are you, man? The girls are gone." That's all he needs to hear. Jack is 8 hours from home, and he gets home in 5 hours. His street is covered in police officers. He runs to Abby, but she starts to hit him and yells at him, and she continues to cry. The police pull her away from him and ask him to help make sense of what she has told them. She told them that their daughter, Charlie, had abducted their daughter, Abby. Jack looks at the police and says, "Charlie's 6. She can't even tie her own shoes." Jack knows the truth. He knows that what his wife has said is true, but he can't share it. It's impossible. After the police get all the photos that they need from Jack and all the information they can use, they head off and tell the couple that they'll be in contact. Hours later, Amy is still curled into a chair in the living room. Jack asks her if she has called her mother, and Amy doesn't respond. After a beat, she tells him that she knows he has brought evil into their home. She asks him to tell her what it is, where it came from, what he knows. But instead, he turns on his heel and heads away. She demands an answer to her question, but he just replies with, "No." Then he tells her he's going to find their daughters. Jack exits the house and can almost see exactly where his daughters went. He heads off and comes to a clearing in the woods, and there's Charlie. She's wearing an expression that is not his daughter's, but instead, it's the face of the demon that has control over her. And she says she's so happy to see her daddy. He took so long to find them. Jack demands that Charlie let Abby go. He tells her that she has no right to hurt Abby. But she snarls and asks, "I have no right, huh, Chief?" It's not Charlie anymore. And there's no reasoning with it. The thing that was Charlie tells her father to remember she is his favorite. But he denies it. and says, Abigail has always been my favorite. Charlie tells him if that's true, maybe you'll figure out a way to get her down. And that is when something drips onto Jack. He looks up and sees his 10-year-old firstborn daughter hanging in the trees, being held up by her very own intestines. Blood is dripping all around him. He's horrified, of course. But then the thing wearing his youngest daughter's face wonder why he's so sensitive. He wasn't so sensitive when he devoured his own mother and father all those years ago. But Jack didn't hear her. Instead, he went into his bag and brought out Amy's best kitchen knife, and Charlie became Charlie again. She looked like Charlie. She sounded like Charlie. She reminded her father that she could be okay, just like he had been. He remembers that it wasn't really him who did all those terrible things, so it must be the same for Charlie. She didn't really do it, and he knew it. And he can't keep it straight in his head that Charlie is just messing with him, and she ends up getting a hold of the knife. She buries it deep into his side. And in that moment, Jack realizes he has lost, that he never had a chance to win. That was decided when he was a boy. That was decided when his mother was a girl. And it's just going to keep happening. As Charlie twists the knife, he cries the cry of a lost child. The next day, the police would locate Jack and Abby in the clearing in the woods. They wouldn't be able to find Amy at the house, but as soon as they head off to her parents to see if she's there, the blood starts to pool from under the door. The police would find Amy with her body face down. Only her head would be in the sink, as if waiting for them to find her. And Charlie headed off into the night, where she was picked up by a large trucker who called her Chief. And that is where it ends. I love stories like this. There are a lot of short stories like this, and conversely, very few movies like this. There are a few, like Skeleton Key comes to mind. That's a great one. And like in Children of the Corn, this is like that short story where they fought and they tried, but there was really no way for Jack to ever go against or win against this demon. And now that it has Charlie, who will probably go on, get married, have children of her own, and the whole damn thing is going to start over. I completely understand why this book shows up on so many disturbing book lists. It's hopeless, completely hopeless. I mean, Jack was a good guy. Like he truly loved his wife. He truly loved his kids. He was his friend, and he was a good person. He was a good guy. And he was a good father, and he was a great husband, and he loved his wife. But that demon, there was just absolutely no way to beat that demon. And who knows when it actually started? I mean, did this start way before his mom? You know what I mean? Like, who knows? This might have been like, in the same way that like at one point when the demon says wearing Charlie's face, this was never your family. This was always my family. Like, I wonder how long it's been that family, how many generations this has happened. It's just, and the fact that it's called Seed, shows you that even when it was just the next generation was just a little seed, that was enough to be completely haunted and be in this total nightmare. So that is Seed by Ania Ahlborn, and I thought it was great. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Let me know. I have a couple more stories that I'm going to be able to give you full descriptions on coming up soon. Sorry there was a little bit of a delay. I video upstairs in my on the third floor of a house, which the air conditioning doesn't reach very well, so I had to make it so that it was livable up here so that I could film and not just be dripping sweat the whole time. So thank you for your patience. And other than that, do me a favor and be kind to yourself. You are the only self you're going to get. You are both precious and important, and tomorrow needs you. I'll catch you next time. Bye. Being an animal lover, there was nothing he could do except you need a leaf. You need a leaf. Poor daddy, who's fever has spiked, that's when he